LinkedIn believes B2B marketing can be to brilliant, be to bold, and be to breakthrough. How? With a platform purpose-built to make B2B mean more for your business. A platform with tools to help you build better relationships with your key customers, to boost your buyer journey while building your brand. A platform with the trusted data and lead generation you need to beat KPIs, drive ROI, and stand out amongst the competition. And with the targeting tools on LinkedIn, you can reach your precise audience right down to their job title, company name, location, and more, to make sure your ads are always being seen by those who matter. So get ready to boldly go where no marketers have gone before, because LinkedIn is where B2B is everything it can be. Rethink your B2B marketing LinkedIn ads and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. The worst thing about influencer marketing for scrappy small businesses is that all that fancy software is too expensive, right? Reach Influencers solves the problem. Now your small business can find, engage, and manage micro and nano influencers, the ones you can afford to work with. And Reach Influencers cost as low as $100 per month. Are you kidding me? No, it's true. Go to capturetheinfluence.com/podcast and see for yourself. Find, engage, manage, influence with software built and priced for you. More at capturetheinfluence.com/podcast. I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is Bill Price.
So this whipsaw in many of the industries, I think, is causing huge headaches to figure out how to deal with, let's call them the older customers, not by age, but customers pre-COVID. How do you deal with them? How do you deal with those that have now come through this period and have a different set of expectations about how they want to be treated because of what they've experienced during the last 2.5, 3 years?
Bill Price started Driva Solutions in September 2001 to help companies achieve the delicate balance between cost containment and greater customer loyalty. Co-founded the 9-country LimeBridge Global Alliance in early 2002 and is the lead co-author of 3 books: The Best Service is No Service, Your Customer Rules, and his latest, The Frictionless Organization. Bill served as Amazon's first Vice President of Global Customer Service, and before that was Vice President and General Manager of MCI Call Center Services, COO and CFO with a startup software company in San Francisco, and a Senior Engagement Manager with McKinsey & Company in San Francisco and Stockholm. Bill, welcome to On Brand.
Nick, thanks very much for inviting me to join. I'm excited about this today.
I am too. You know, we chatted, I was looking it up, I think back in 2017, and the world has obviously changed a lot since then. And I'm not sure if this was in your bio at the time, and I just didn't notice it. But I also see that you started Driva Solutions in September 2001. And I see that now, and I think, wow, what a time to start a business. And I wanted to ask you about that, just because I'm sure as we find ourselves here in 2022 with some one-of-a-kind years hopefully behind us, and a challenging time in business. As you look back on the 20 plus years there, what did you learn from starting a business in September 2001?
Well, the timing was very strange, as you mentioned. In fact, I'll make it really specific, Nick. I started the company September 1st, 2001, so 9/1/01.
Wow.
And was with my first client in Boston on 9/11. So finished a jog along the Charles River, got back to my hotel room, turned on the TV, and then it was all there. All the attacks on the World Trade Center and down in D.C. and in Pennsylvania, of course. Got stranded in Boston. Could not leave Boston because uh, all the airlines canceled flights later that morning
Yeah.
or early that afternoon. So I was, in a way, stuck with this client for a whole week, which they found delightful, and I found actually very good for an initial consulting engagement because we got to know each other very well. There were worries, of course, even that same day and the next day, you might remember, about whether there were going to be subsequent attacks, even in Boston.
Right.
So everyone was on pins and needles. My family was concerned on the West Coast with me being so far away. But what it did cause was, I think, a heightened sense of worry, a heightened sense of concern over employees and over customers. In an ironic way, we all kind of huddled together. I mean, people called each other. They reached out to each other. Companies were concerned about their employees who might have been in New York or DC or in other affected areas. And I think it actually led to, at least with the clients that I was able to help in those first few months after 9/11, they were able to build a community of some sort. And the companies that I work with later that year and through 2002 were very eager to navigate through what was a pretty turbulent time, the dot bomb period. A lot of companies failed during that period. Companies could not get financing, but there was really real heavy concern, deep concern that you might lose customers forever if you didn't really treat them well. So the message that I was delivering at that time, coming right out of Amazon just before that, was how can you make the experiences awesome? How can you do what we used to call customer ecstasy? It's a term that was a unique Amazon term in those days, but how can you create great customer experiences? It actually resonated really well on a post 9/11 period.
So fast forward to today, and this, you talked about post 9/11. Maybe we can label it post COVID. I don't know exactly what we call it. But in thinking about that, and you talking about the concern over customers, that it feels really more relevant than I initially realized in answering that question, because I feel like there's a similar concern for customers today. Would you agree?
I would agree, and I think it's been because of the whipsaw effect of COVID, where certain companies, think hospitality, airlines, restaurants. I mean, many of them cratered, had huge problems. They couldn't even be open, or if they were, it was deemed unsafe or challenging for customers. And other companies just boomed. Some of the online retailers, online video services, home delivery services, they boomed. And now there's kind of been a reversal. You get airlines that are struggling to hire back pilots and to keep their routes up and running. You've had .com companies and delivery companies that are struggling to keep that business because customers are going back to restaurants, they're going back into retail stores. So this whipsaw in many of the industries, I think, is causing huge headaches to figure out how to deal with let's call them the older customers, not by age, but customers pre-COVID. How do you deal with them? How do you deal with those that have now come through this period and have a different set of expectations about how they want to be treated because of what they've experienced during the last 2.5, 3 years? So I think that every company that I work with now and that I talk to is scratching its head saying, what does this really mean for us? And fundamentally, it means how can we hold on to our best employees and how can we hold on to our best customers?
Well, you said it with the example from airline and hospitality of where you can really see that whipsaw, and it brings me back to kind of the as you so effectively describe in the first line of your bio, the delicate balance between cost containment and loyalty. And it is a delicate balance. It's an odd dynamic because you can't get things out of balance there, because you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
problem. But with
Mm-hmm.
things expanding, contracting, then you see, headlines today, the airlines are on, recovering a bit, but certainly had a big experience. They're out of balance, I think you would
Right.
say, when you look at what happened
Right. Mm-hmm.
in the past few weeks. But financial performance is a little bit better. So how do you how can brands look at this and figure out some kind of plan that isn't maybe as herky jerky?
Yeah, that's really the issue, isn't it? I mean, it's how can you build a consistent plan when you're not quite sure what tomorrow's going to bring? I think we have more turbulence now than we did maybe since that 9/11 period. It's really a good analogy to think about. We're not quite sure if there'll be another variant, if there'll be, continued disruption to supply chains because of the war in Ukraine or other issues in China. So I think the entire set of industries, all verticals, all different types of companies are struggling, correctly struggling, meaning they need to struggle to figure out what does this really mean for us. So here's the way I look at it: is the old concept of the true north is a bit hackneyed, but it comes to play here, I think, which is where are we really going? I'm now personifying an executive of a company. Where are we really going? What's really important for us? What do we really hold dear? What are our core missions and values? Those need to be reestablished or reaffirmed right now. And I won't talk about any company in particular, but just as a concept that needs to be like the true north, the way that we're going. And then the path to that, or the path around that, or to get to it, is one of coming up with contingencies and different scenarios. What if this happens? What if that happens? uh, every company that I know has always had some sort of a contingency or scenario planning, but it's never really been exercised until the last few years, when it's all been exercised. And yeah, even the effects of climate change that might disrupt deliveries, that might disrupt electrical grids and water systems. All that needs to be much more tuned up, if you will. The alternatives that could happen, the alternative scenarios that could happen. And so I think those are the two things: true north and the alternative scenarios that are there as playbooks, if you will, that you have to be able to exercise in order to figure out what's important for our customers here.
And true north in terms of values, true north in terms of what are the best what's the best framing for that compass?
Well, companies that I work with, and my team and my partners around the world have worked with, might express it as something like, we're gonna give the best product available at the lowest possible price, or we're going to make sure that we build products that are innovative, that solve customer needs before they know it. I mean, things that are aspirational is what I'm looking for, Nick, in terms of a true north. They are, some of them could be value driven. I sort of put a few words into those two statements I just gave, but something which really doesn't change. It should not change based on the economy, world situations, and so forth. It's what we are good at doing. Back in the day, companies like Hewlett Packard and IBM and other tech firms had very clear visions and strategies. They navigated, many of the travails of the 73 crises and oil crises and everything like that, because they knew what they were doing. They knew what they were building. They knew what they were delivering. And some of them continue to do well, and some of them had challenges, but they nonetheless had that vision, or that direction that they didn't want to part from or depart from.
On Brand will be right back after this. LinkedIn believes B2B marketing can be to brilliant, be to bold, and be to breakthrough. How? With a platform purpose built to make B2B mean more for your business. a platform with tools to help you build better relationships with your key customers, to boost your buyer journey while building your brand. A platform with the trusted data and lead generation you need to beat KPIs, drive ROI, and stand out amongst the competition. And with the targeting tools on LinkedIn, you can reach your precise audience right down to their job title, company name, location, and more, to make sure your ads are always being seen by those who matter. So get ready to beat a boldly go where no marketers have gone before, because LinkedIn is where B2B is everything it can be. Rethink your B2B marketing LinkedIn ads and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
How can you change the world, build a company, or establish an industry if no one knows you exist? Marketing makes you exist. The Space Marketing Podcast is where we explore marketing principles, strategies, and tactics through the lens of space. Join me, Izzy House, as we talk with industry professionals about their challenges and successes with marketing in the new space economy. Subscribe at spacemarketingpodcast.com or look for the Space Marketing Podcast wherever you listen.
Now, back to the show. So, in establishing a true north and some consistency, it seems like a great opportunity to talk about your new book, the Frictionless Organization.
Mm-hmm.
So, to the title itself, how do you define a frictionless organization?
Well, I think it's really a fun question, because it almost starts with, how do you define organizations with friction? And then how can we find the absence of friction, i.e. frictionless? So in a way, we came up with it as a little bit of a puzzler, and it's been fun to get reactions to that. Every organization that we've ever dealt with, professionally and then even personally, in terms of as consumers, winds up having lots of friction. They make it hard for you to navigate their website, hard for you to return a product that you don't want or don't need anymore, or that was broken or damaged. They make it difficult for you to change some of your personal details about your account, to update your passwords, a whole range of things. The product or service itself could contain friction. The experience to purchase, use it, perhaps return it could also create friction. And so friction has abounded in our point of view for a long, long time. What we've looked for, and we try to build up in the book, are examples of companies that realize that they are creating friction along all those points. And they say to themselves, we don't want to do this. This costs money for us. It costs time and effort, and risks losing customers. It's a loyalty challenge for our customers and our prospects and customers. So we need to figure out where that friction exists. Some years ago, an example I did not put in this book, but in the previous book, is actually relevant. Maybe it'll be useful for the audience to think about. About 10 years ago, the Hyatt organization came up with a new brand called Andaz, ANDAZ. And what they did, when we interviewed them on behalf of another client, so we were sitting down with them in Chicago, and what the senior VP of rooms and marketing talked about was, we went out and we asked our employees what were the challenges that they were facing to support customers and guests. And we asked the guests the same questions. What were the challenges that they had? What were the frustrations that they had? Because we wanted to make the Andaz brand really easy to live with, easy to deal with. And one of the issues they came up with, both from an employee point of view and a customer point of view, was the check-in line when you check into a hotel. You've just traveled to a different city, maybe a different country, you're a little tired, you got your roller bag, and you get there to the hotel and there's a line in front of you. And they don't necessarily know who you are, and you got to go through that line in order to finally get your bags in your room and relax. So they came up with the idea of having their employees come up, basically get rid of the front desk and have a tablet this is 10 or 12 years ago, bring a tablet over and greet you as you came in. And maybe offer to take your roller bag from you, and then go through the check-in process while you were walking from the front door straight to the elevator, if that's where you wanted to go. If you want to stop at the bar, that's also okay. Say straight to the elevator, up to your room. By the time you get to your room, everything's checked in. You get a chance to know a little bit about the environment and the hotel property, that individual himself or herself. And then if you want to get a little introduction to your room, with your permission, they come in and show you how to use the AC and so forth. And it was a much better experience. They tried to get rid of some of those blockers, that friction that happened. And so while we don't talk about in this book, we talk about many other examples like that, where organizations figure out where are their problems, friction, where are there things that make it hard for our customers and our employees, and how can we remove those blockages, i.e. become frictionless?
There are a lot of great examples. And what I really like about the examples in the book is that they are, that you have in each chapter, it's broken out after you build on the key concept. You've got good stories and bad stories. And I love that. And I always, when we talk about the brand that makes you smile, I always say to guests that it can be a good smile or it can be a shaking your head bad smile, because we learn from both. So what led you to that focus, and are there any that kind of counterbalance one another nicely?
Well, it's funny. It's really funny you say that. I'm really glad we're talking about this particular topic, this piece of it, because when you go to conferences, when you listen to speeches or presentations, it's almost always the good stuff. We maybe we had a problem or we encountered a problem, but we fixed it. And look, things are going well. We've got smooth sailing. Or here are the great things that our employees are doing. Or here are the things that our customers are saying that they really love about our company. What organizations don't tend to talk about very much are things that didn't work, or that are, again, causing friction or problems. And so we call those the bad stories. And we don't name those organizations unless they're in the public domain. But we do name and often quote executives from the good stories that we mention. So I guess I could give you one counterpoint. Let's stay with the airline industry for a moment. We were able to have a good interview with the head of customer service and experience for United Airlines. And he had come over from American Express. So he had a non-airline background, brought the concepts of American Express and customer experience over to United Airlines. And I make sure it was American Express to United Airlines. Make sure I get the branding correct here. And when he came over there, he found all sorts of things that just didn't quite make sense to him, including passengers who were online while they were calling up to make a change. In other words, they were trying to make the change online, but they couldn't figure out how to do it, so they were forced to call up. And he called that a form of friction. And the idea is, let's make sure we don't let that happen. So we collected all those examples, fed them back to his IT team, and became a partner to his own IT organization, who was trying to make sure that they had seamless or frictionless self-service. But it was now evident that it wasn't working completely. So he was able to give them feedback to improve that experience. So that's United Airlines. We talk about some other airlines, some of them in South Asia, close to where my co-author lives in Australia. That just cause all sorts of problems and don't necessarily own up to it. They don't let customers know about canceled flights. So you wind up going to the airport and find out that the flight's been not just delayed, but it's been canceled, and you could have made other arrangements. And so we don't talk about, we do talk about the good stories and the bad stories for different types of industries, but there are a number of them that we picked up. In online retailing, we talked about some positive examples from Amazon and some negative examples from a name company where they sent out an update the night before a scheduled delivery saying, rest assured your product's going to arrive tomorrow. And great, okay, I'm going to stay home tomorrow. I'm going to wait for my product to arrive, and it never arrives because the data source feeding that automated message the night before was not updated properly. Right. And has not been updated properly. And so that set a really bad feeling in the customer's mouth because they were waiting for this product and it never arrived, as opposed to Amazon and other companies that say it's going to arrive on Thursday, and by Jove, it arrives on Thursday. So those sorts of A/B examples I find to be always useful whenever I do workshops or talk to clients. It always brings out a lot of richness in, well, what was it about that one company in the good story that enabled them to make it work, while the other organization that was in the bad story didn't make it work? Let's find the patterns there. And I think that's a useful way to think about it.
Well, there's all kinds of different examples of friction, and you have lots of chapters dedicated to easing that friction with digitize, streamline, redesign. I also love that you close the book with where to start. So I kind of want to, as we wrap up our interview and someone's thinking about all this friction, where can you start with this? Because it's daunting. Everything that all these points of friction and easing them is a challenge.
Yeah. Let me paraphrase that rather than do it directly, because it's a topic that comes up quite often. The first step is to figure out what are those reasons why customers are contacting you in the first place, to actually use their language, the customer's language, and not your own expressions for this. So like, why is my bill so high? Why did you not get back to me as promised? How can I find the closest retail store? How can I cancel my account? Those would be examples of what we call the reasons. So that's the first step. And the second step is to quantify those reasons. Figure out how expensive they are in terms of their cost, not just their volumes, but their costs. And then also associate what we call pain with each of those reasons. So some of the reasons, like I want to cancel my account, probably contain a lot of customer frustration and pain. Other ones, like where's your closest retail store, doesn't really associate with pain, meaning frustration and low NPS or other reactions. But they don't necessarily need to be handled by a live agent. They could be done through that digitized channel. And then we talk about making sure you've got someone in the organization outside of customer service who is tapped as the owner of whatever action you're going to take against those issues. If it's, I'd like the information about my password update, then make sure you have a digital solution and there's some sort of a digital customer experience lead, who it could be in marketing or could be in IT, who really owns that and really watches whether that particular reason goes down over time. And we talk about a rate of contacts. So we're talking about the cost of those contacts, but also what is the rate? So if you're doubling the size of your business, then the rate of you'd like to see the number of contacts per customer go down. It may be an overall flat number of contacts because you've doubled, which means you've now halved the rate. The rate's gone down by 50%. So that's a good thing. So those are just a few of the where to start is to start collecting those data and engaging the cross-functional executives whose groups are in a way causing those contacts, as well as they have the resources and the skills to be able to address and attack those contacts and those different reasons.
Awesome. Great plan for getting started. We are actually not getting started. We're wrapping things up, and it is time for the brand that has made you smile. And Bill, I have to ask: Are we getting a good story or a bad story?
I could have given you either one. I've been thinking about this in our conversation, but I'm going to give you a good story, and it's a good story from a company that's based, I think, in somewhere in Oregon. But they have a number of locations up here in Seattle. It's called the Les Schwab car company, or Les Schwab tire company, not car company, tire company. And I got a message from them, and it said, going somewhere, stop by for a free pre-trip safety check. And I've gone to Les Schwab twice. Once because one of my cars had a flat I needed to be repaired, and I heard good things about Les Schwab, and I went in there and they did an awesome job. They found the nail, they took it out, didn't even charge me for it. And then I went in for a second time because I had another flat, same thing, didn't even charge me for it. I've not paid a nickel to Les Schwab. But their idea is to build this connection. Maybe sooner or later, I'm going to need their services that'll cost some money, and I'll go in, but I'll think of Les Schwab rather than somebody else. Well, it turns out my wife and I are going to be traveling to Eastern Washington next week, and we're going to take our 10-year-old Subaru that we bought in Iowa when we lived there. It's been a trooper. But I'm a little concerned that, is it really, are the tires really in good shape? Maybe I should take it back to the dealer. Well, this promotion caught me and made me smile. So I scheduled the appointment in a few clicks. They've confirmed it. I'm going to go in next Tuesday, and they're going to do this, what they call a pre-trip safety check. They're going to look at not just the tires, but also the brakes and the battery. And far from being a come on that I think is going to cause me to fork over a lot of money. I trust these guys because of the two experiences I had before. And it just made me smile, like, you remembered me and you happened to hit me at the right time before this trip.
Yeah, that's what a great story and a simple path to loyalty. So definitely a lot of smiles there. Bill, where can folks go to learn more about you and the new book?
David Jaffe, my co-author, and I have come up with a website called frictionlessorg.com, www.frictionlessorg.com. And you can find some snippets on there and more details about us, some of the details about the stories. And we're going to start adding additional stories, Nick, stories that have now been contributed by readers, by clients and friends and family. They think, oh, if you're talking about friction, here's a good example of friction. That's a good thing. We always get friction examples. We don't get too many frictionless examples, back to your first question. But that's awfully useful to look at what the sources of friction are. So frictionlessorg.com.
Awesome. Well, we are going to reduce listener friction. If you have trouble remembering that, know that you're listening to the On Brand podcast, and you can find links to everything that Bill and I have talked about at onbrandpodcast.com. Bill, thanks for being on brand with us.
Appreciate it, Nick. Enjoyed it very much.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.